All right, I'm showing we are live. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am here with the Executive Director of the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine, David Trahan, and Board Member Bob Humphrey. We have an exciting broadcast today with some fantastic information on LD 404, an act to preserve deer yards in Maine. And with that, Bob, I will let you start out.
I'm just going to be very brief here because I think David's got the good job today. But this is something that's come up recently, something that David and the folks at SAM worked very hard on. And about the only comment that I have is it just defies comprehension how anyone could oppose or be find this in any way objectionable. This is groundbreaking legislation. This is the state purchasing land to protect deer wintering areas in parts of the state where the deer population is in trouble, and that's the only way that we're going to bring these deer back, these deer numbers back up, is do something like this. We're not taking land. The state is purchasing it. The state will own it, and the state will manage it. And there is money available right now to completely fund this effort. So there are no cons. It's all pro, and it sounds like we're going to have um, our first deer wintering area online, and I'll let David speak to that.
Sure. Well, first of all, before I start, thank you to all the people that helped in this effort. I've been working on this a long time, long before I took over at SAM, to try to figure out a way to stop the trend of the loss of deer habitat throughout northern Maine, which anybody from that area visits realizes that we've lost a tremendous amount of habitat for deer. And what has happened is the deer population has crashed. Unlike the southern part of the state, northern Maine is lucky to have a few deer per square mile. And in an effort to try to bring the deer back, this is now my third attempt. Last year, we finally got a bill passed, LD 404, to protect deer and manage deer habitat. We got a $40 million appropriation over the next 4 years. That passed as well. And so I've been chomping at the bit for a while now because I knew that the state was negotiating with several landowners on a purchase. And so today, the Land for Maine's Future Board met and announced 5 projects across the state, of which one of them was a deer wintering area purchase in Aroostook County. It is land that is along the Caribou Stream. It's 2 parcels, 943 acres. And the LMF board met. They questioned Inland Fisheries and Wildlife on the significance of this area. Department gave a great presentation about their intentions of building from these 2 structures, piecing together a significant deer wintering complex in and around Washburn and Woodland in Aroostook County. The exciting part is that the LMF board went into executive session, and when they came out, they agreed to purchase these 2 parcels. It is the first time that this is an historic moment. And for those that are listening, whether you support this effort or not, this is an historic moment in what will be the history of whitetail deer in Maine. Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has now purchased, and for the highest priority, are going to manage these 2 lots and hopefully build out from these 2 lots on a deer wintering complex to bring the deer herd back in at least this portion of the state. In addition to the deer wintering area, these 2 lots also have significant brook trout habitat, native self-sustaining brook trout fisheries. There's snowmobiling, there's fishing, trapping, a whole number of other outdoor activities that occur on these lots. Now, for those listeners that are out there, I say this is the first time, and it's historic, and I believe that's true. But that department is going gangbusters on other purchases around the state, others in the Aroostook County area as well. I'm very proud to thank a long list of people. It starts with the governor, because the governor is very strongly behind this effort. Tom Abello, who used to work with the Nature Conservancy, Jeff Romano, who works with Maine Coast Heritage Trust, Maine Deer Hunters, Sportsman's Alliance of Maine Leadership and Board. There's just so many people. Jerry McLaughlin from the Aroostook County Conservation Association. Just so many people to thank, but particularly Senator Timberlake, who helped negotiate the money for this. I just wanted to make sure I thanked everyone that was involved. But this is the beginning. This is the first purchase, of which I believe there will be many, to start buying chunks of land, managing them for deer, not only managing them for deer, but enhancing the habitat. What I was really struck by today was Inland Fisheries and Wildlife's complete, I guess, commitment to managing these areas, including predation control, habitat improvement, food plots, feeding, whatever was necessary to bring these deer back. But also, they presented the history of these two lots going back to the 1980s with historic deer presence on the land. So this land has shown that it sustains deer in the wintertime. That's exciting given where it is. There's not a lot of places left. So I'm very proud to say that together we've started down the road of taking control of our destiny as hunters, as conservationists, as it relates to deer. We have taken control, and we can together make a difference on bringing the deer herd back. I know I just talked with Jerry McLaughlin from the ACCA in Aroostook County. Those folks are incredibly excited about what's happening. They're working with the surrounding landowners to identify more deer wintering areas. They're taking local ownership of restoring deer. And for those that are out there that live along the coast and they don't see a problem with the deer population, imagine if it was taken away from you tomorrow and the deer disappeared. How sad you would be to lose that part of your culture, of your history and your community. And that's how these people in Aroostook County feel. That's how people down east feel. So people in Western Maine feel, is they've lost a major part of their past, the relationships they had with their family, their experiences on the landscape, and finally they feel empowered to get some of it back. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to it. I imagine you have some questions. I imagine Bob has some questions too. So I'll just stop here, and if you have any, I'll try to answer them.
Not a question, but a follow-up comment on this, just to emphasize. Sam's motto is "We are the conservationists," and this is a prime example that speaks to that, because this is land conservation. When people hear the state is buying property, sometimes it sets alarms off and red flags go up. But this is not a Roxanne Quimby piece. This is a piece of property that's going to be public property, owned by the state, open for public access for consumptive recreation, hunting, fishing, and trapping. Right. And furthermore, I think the majority of public land that's in the state is owned and managed by a different department whose priority is making money off timber sales. That's right. And that's not going to be the case here.
That's right.
In the former case, timber sales are priority. They're money makers, and the type of cutting that goes on isn't necessarily always amenable to good wildlife habitat. There's a little component to it, but it's often just a footnote. Here's an opportunity to do something really significant, and it will benefit not only deer, but 17 or 70 other wildlife species.
That's right.
So we're conserving this, wise use.
That's right. That's what's exciting about projects like this, and you nailed it. I focus on deer, and because that's my passion. But that land now is going to be managed for all wildlife. You're right on, spot on, Bob. The brook trout fishery that's there is now going to be guaranteed that that's going to remain healthy. There's just so much more you can do when it's in public ownership. But you're right. The Department of Conservation does not have the deed to this land. It's Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
And it can still be cut. They can still do some cutting there. In fact, I'm sure they will, because a deer yard, it may be good now, but in time it can become over mature. It can grow out of that quality. So if they maintain the habitat by doing a little cutting here, a little thinning there, promote hardwood growth for winter browse, keep uneven age stands so that there's always the right age forest in there, which they're going to do. So this thing isn't going to time out.
No, you're spot on that one as well, Bob. The department talked a lot about the surrounding landowners and working with them, buying up parcels around it. You're exactly right. You need some cutting in there to keep the woods fresh and healthy. I also was encouraged by the department. They talked about reseeding some of the species that are in those stands. There is in these two lots, there's a heavy growth of cedar, which you need. There's 120 some acres of wetlands with cedar surrounding it. It's a major component of a deer wintering area. They also talked about adding other species and doing tree planting in there for mass crops and other types of trees that benefit wildlife. The exciting part for me is they've already begun mapping the surrounding area for travel corridors, for landowners willing to participate in a project to bring deer back. The more you can get local support for a project like this, the more likely you are to succeed. I can see the department working with folks locally who have already been doing this for a couple decades to manage the habitat on the ground, to get volunteers to come in and do a lot of the work. A lot of work can be done in the wintertime to watch closely for predation. If coyotes do move in, the locals can alert the department, get them in there, keep the coyotes under control. I am interested in looking at year-round predation control, which includes predation by bears. There is a significant amount of fawns in other states. Studies have shown it, that are killed by bears in the spring during a month-long to 6-week period. So we need to do something there. I've been encouraged by my discussions with the department. At the very least, they have an interest in expanding bear hunting opportunities around these deer wintering areas, to do things like bait sites and others in hounding and what other forms of bear hunting we have to manage bear around these areas to get the populations to a balance with deer. So I got to be honest with you, I'm so excited. I'm about ready to burst. Been working on this so long, and so many good people have been part of that. I remember Ellie Espling, Representative Espling. She became assistant Republican leader in the House. She's now working for Senator Collins. When she was on the committee, her and I and a couple others worked on a whitetail deer management plan that started us down this road. And I'm going to personally give her a call and say, it was a long time ago, but I know you were passionate about this, and the work that we started way back then is starting to pay fruit. So a lot of people to call and thank, but I am so excited. I do know of other deer areas that are being negotiated, and when those projects come on, they're going to be exciting as well. Some are much larger, some are smaller, but it feels like something good is happening. I've been pleasantly surprised with the willingness of landowners to talk about selling their deer wintering areas. At this point, I feel really good about what's happening.
Yeah, and that's another really good point to some of the naysayers. This isn't the state taking land by eminent domain.
No.
This is the state purchasing land from willing and eager landowners, people who in some cases are approaching the state saying, I want to do
correct.
this. And also with very strong support from the local community.
That's correct. I think that's a big deal. That is a big deal because, and like you said, there's going to always be naysayers, but I got to be honest with you. I've been working on this for over 20 years, and I've always heard naysayers. And those naysayers are standing by, complaining and criticizing while the deer are disappearing. But not just the deer. The habitat that holds the deer is disappearing. If that doesn't make you sad, I don't know what does. The entire landscape in some regions of the state has been changed in my lifetime. To go from a healthy habitat to a one-dimensional early growth habitat that won't hold deer. As a conservation-minded person, which by the way, I've logged for over 30 years and I still do it on the side, I understand the need to cut wood, But I also understand the need to have a healthy forest. You can't be a one-dimensional forest because it just won't sustain not only deer but all the other wildlife that you need on the landscape. So for those naysayers, you know, continue to criticize, but I know in my heart this is the right thing to do. It has a majority of the population's support, the vast majority of the legislature's support. It's going to happen. And so for the naysayers, you know what? Throw the hand grenades, but sit back and watch. And I think as things progress and we're successful, those naysayers will go away.
Yeah, I've engaged several in friendly debate, and once you start to explain the facts,
Yeah,
their point starts to weaken, and then when you show how many holes in the bucket there are,
yeah,
their bucket holds no water.
that's right. That's right. That's a nice way of putting it. So I guess with that, if there's not any more questions, I will say that I'm very excited that Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is taking this so seriously. I was very impressed with the plan that they have for the land. I will share with you that we're having discussions internally with the administration around regional management on more than just inland fisheries and wildlife lands, but all of other public lands in these areas. There is a change that's going to happen, Bob and Daniel, on the way that we manage those public lots. Wildlife, each lot needs a wildlife management plan. You can cut wood, but you need a diversity of trees on the landscape. And I think you're going to see some positive things come from those discussions. I'm going to engage, I got some meetings being scheduled at Nature Conservancy. Some of their folks are some of the best in the nation, probably in the world, around managing wildlife. It's time to bring in more folks to the team to start talking about regional management for wildlife. We can still have the wood cutting. We can just do it in a manner in which not only do we benefit from the cutting of trees, but we benefit from the wildlife on the landscape as well.
We do have some questions and comments.
Sure.
One is from Facebook user, and if anybody has a question or comment, please give StreamYard permission to use your name and your profile pic, and that way we'll know who we're talking to. This is from Facebook user. What are some of the first management activities now that the land is purchased?
Well, the department has talked about, they're on the landscape now surveying exactly where the deer are using. They're surveying the trout habitat that's on the property. The state does not have a closing on the property until September. So they're a bit limited on what they can do. They have an intent to purchase signed agreement. They now have to do their due diligence, search the deeds, get all the lines marked, that sort of thing. But their biologists are already on the ground surveying. They will then come up with a management plan, a wildlife management plan for the site. In addition, they'll put together a predation control program, a habitat enhancement program, and then basically a tree growth plan for the site, in which they break down each lot's forest structure to see how they can maximize it to benefit deer. At the same time they're doing all those things, they'll be identifying other wildlife species on the property. They'll be identifying access points for the public to use it for things like trapping, for fishing. So while they're managing it for deer, at the same time, they'll be putting all those plans together, but also a plan for the public to use both sites. And that's crucial because there are so many other activities when the deer aren't yarding up that can occur on those lands, from brook trout to bird watching to hiking to you name it. So that's all in the process of being developed as we speak.
Outstanding. Thank you, David. Bob, I'm gonna pass this one off to you. The Honorable Corey Wilson asks, explain from a biological perspective, how this will increase the deer population.
I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, which is rare for a biologist. But basically, winter habitat is a limiting factor for deer. That in other parts of the country, it may be food, it may be water, but in northern Maine, it's winter habitat. There may be enough food or not, but they need shelter. When deep colds, deep snows happen, they seek shelter of softwoods, which ameliorates the snowfall, makes it easier for them to travel in and out to reach food, and also makes it easier for them to avoid or elude predators. So by providing this habitat, it gives them a little bit of a leg up on the severity of winter. They may not expend as much energy over the course of a winter. They may have a better chance of evading predators and surviving the winter with better habitat.
I want to add to that. I just turned it down, but thank you. It was Craig Richardson. I want to add to that because there's another component to that that is incredibly important. Because of the loss of habitat on the landscape, what remains of good habitat is in the riparian zones along bodies of water. And what happens in a year like this year, where there's very shallow cover, snow cover on the ground, the coyotes figured out that when there's bare ice on the lakes and on the streams, they can drive what deer are left in these thin riparian zones along the water. They can drive them down onto the ice. And anyone who's ever seen what that looks like, it is one of the most gruesome things you can imagine. These coyotes will drive a deer out onto the ice, they collapse on the ice, and then the coyotes come in and tear them to pieces. They don't kill them quickly, they tear them to pieces. By having larger complexes like the department is building, those deer have more escape routes, they have more options to avoid predators, and they're easier to manage. In deep, deep winter snow cover, those deer are confined to these narrow paths. So they have it bad no matter what the winter's like. If it's an open winter with very little snow, they're going to get killed on the ice. If it's a deep, deep snow, the coyotes are going to push them into the deep snow and they're going to kill them in the deep snow. The ability for the department to know where these deer are and manage the predation, no matter what the winter conditions, allows you to expand the deer herd. If they need to supplement their feed in those deer yards, they can. But what I'm excited about, and the difference between, say, a place like Anacostia Island, who has poor habitat but a lot of deer, the difference is predation. Here with coyotes on the landscape and bears growing in their population, we've got to do something to control predation. And I'm excited because now there's more options for the department to do so in an effective way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Steve Mishu says, just outstanding, such great leadership, David. Thank you. Without a doubt, Sam's greatest accomplishment.
Wow. You know, that comes from a man I respect. That touches me to the core. Steve's a good man. Thank you, Steve.
Yep. Yeah, and now just a quick shameless plug. Remember who did this? It's Sam. So, folks, go to sam.com and sign up, become a member.
Thank you for that, Bob.
Yep,
you know, I do want to expand on that. You know, as we move along, I'm going to keep saying it because this is the important part about what we're doing. As sportsmen and women, all of us love different components of the outdoors. And we have this incredible power when we join our forces together, whether it's SAM, Maine Deer Hunters, whatever the groups are. If you have a common passion for the outdoors, when we can put our forces together, we become an incredibly powerful political force that can make landscape change. And this is a good example. This is going to take a decade or two to fully implement. We must keep our groups together, keep our power consolidated, be influential in elections and influence candidates. I was, just part of another discussion related to restructuring the antlerless deer permit system. When that's all said and done, there's going to be revenue generated for that system. And I want to highlight this because it is a powerful tool going forward. Because of the political environment, more and more people are buying firearm and firearm-related components, of which there's an excise tax paid to Pittman-Robertson, which is the federal program. For every dollar we generate from that antlerless deer permit system, goes into the deer management account, which can buy deer yards and manage deer yards. There's $3 federal available to match it. If you raise $500,000 in that system, that means that there's another $1.5 million in federal money available. As sportsmen, it's crucial we know that so that we can protect that money and make sure it's invested in restoring deer. So depending on how much we end up with from that program, that restructuring, it's possible we could have millions of dollars a year available as sportsmen at very little cost to us because we spread our influence in our dollars over such a big pool that it doesn't cost each individual hunter much. But when we understand collectively, we can generate millions of dollars in the political clout to restructure the landscape. If that doesn't give you goosebumps, I don't know what will.
And going forward with this, today's news is exciting news, but it's going to be very exciting to see how this plays out in the future. I know that you've talked about the potential of other landowners coming on board. I can't wait to see what happens. And to everybody involved, David, to you, Bob, Maine deer hunters, everybody involved in this, thank you so much.
Yeah, I do want to have one more plug for Nate Webb, who's the wildlife division director for inland fisheries and wildlife. I told him today, earlier before I came on this call, I said, what excites me, Nate, is you're a young man. You can't go anywhere. You have a passion for this, just like I do. Take this energy. Please stay there until this is fully implemented. People that work in state government, they can work up a ladder. He's pretty high on the ladder and he's still young. I'm so excited that he'll be there and he has a passion to do this. There's so many people that Judy Camuso, the governor, Tom Abello, Jeff Romano, all of these people had a part in piece in this. And for them, I say thank you. So going forward, let's see how it plays out. I think the next deer yard on the list is gonna shock people how large it is. It's a significant piece. If it all works out, I told the department I want to know no details until it's done, because if there's any leaks, I don't want them to come from me. I don't want to jeopardize any purchase, but what little bit I know, it's pretty exciting. So
well, that sounds like a great teaser for our next episode.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I do think we should come back and talk about coyotes. There's a plan coming out of a fur bearer committee this Thursday related to coyotes and dramatic changes to how we manage coyotes. I can tell you that Sam and I bet Maine deer hunters are going to be troubled by what we hear on Thursday. Things like creating a season on coyotes, restricting, not having any coyote season during the pup rearing season, which is very lengthy, which means most of the year you wouldn't be able to hunt coyotes. Proposal to regulate night hunting by wildlife management districts so you could ban it in some areas. There's a whole series of proposals coming, ideas. Jerry Levine's going to be sitting next to me at that meeting on Thursday. It's a public meeting, so as soon as I know how to link you to it, I'll send you the link. But there's a battle brewing on managing coyotes. And again, we have to be unified as an outdoor community. There are folks that want to end the management of coyotes in Maine. There's also the restructuring of the antlerless deer permit system. No matter what we come out with, that's going to be controversial. So further discussions so people understand what's going on. I think it's good for all of us.
Well,
So
I'm glad.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the coyote. Bob and I were actually having a discussion about coming on and doing a live. So I think it's perfect timing.
Absolutely, it is, and the proposals are game changers for coyote management. Luckily, we have probably the best uh, deer biologists out there. Bob is awesome. Jerry Levine is, I think, the deputy commissioner called him the deer god the other day on radio. Between the two of them and the people that are behind us on this, I think we can make a lot of noise. So,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
not just noise. We're backed up by good biology. So
Good
that's
deal.
key.
That's key. That's key.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope we do this a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. David,
Thanks, David.
thank you so much. Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll do it as often as
Oh,
you
yeah.
like.
I'm going to put in one more plug. Consider joining the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine. You can go to our website, sportsmansallianceofmaine.org, and sign up online. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day, everybody.
See ya.